This is the Zigmund Reichenbach show. Good to have y'all. I took a break last week. It was kind of weird. Good to have y'all back. Look forward to hearing from you. But yeah, no, last week I ended up taking a break because I got this horrible scam call. And I was so mixed up by that scam call that like I was so out of it because it seemed so real. Like I had no idea what it was that what was going on. There's a scam out there right now where people are calling you and telling you that they're the cops, and if you hang up, you are going to jail. Which is the most ridiculous and absurd thing on planet Earth. It is so crazy. And it was something that I fell for because by the time that they called me, it was right in the middle of the day. So I was at work trying to do what it is that I do. And I was really thinking about what it was that was going on. And these people are telling me that I cannot hang up the phone, and if I do, I'm going to jail. So sometimes I get a little paranoid and mixed up, and then I think like that is honestly really true. So I was so spooked and so scared about the prospect, the fake prospect actually of going to jail, that I was out of it. Like I was not able to do the show. So I'm sorry to my loyal allegiance of fans out there. I don't have a cool name for fans yet. But yeah, no, it was so ridiculously terrifying. And I also noticed that in the last show that I made, it's a little mixed up in terms of production because I didn't have the right equipment. Like my stream equipment was not right. I had a weird camera lens that didn't like made the size of my head too big, so that was weird. And then also, I was trying to go for some like routine thing, some like generic canned way of speaking, and I don't think you need to actually do that in the stream. I think if you actually just be yourself and have a good, honest conversation with people, hey, good to see y'all join. But if you have a good, honest conversation with people and just be yourself, then you're gonna have a better product. And I think that's what it is that we're honestly missing, just in general, whether it's streaming or in the news or wherever. We're just lacking people being authentic and people just truly being themselves. There are so many anxieties out there in the world that people are just afraid to talk candidly. People are afraid to have conversation. People are afraid to be anything other than what someone else expects them to be. I think in terms of fear, that's where most people live. Most people aren't looking for a brighter future. They're just looking how to alleviate the discomfort of living in the dark. And that's no way to live. And it's a real problem. I mean, despite the unprecedented wealth we have as a society, people are more afraid than ever before. There's all kinds of conspiracies about AI. People are telling themselves that other political parties are out to get them personally. In the absence of any real existential threat, people are just making them up and pretending like they're real. Yeah, Matt mentioned, can I tell you more about the RAINS Act passing the PA Senate? For sure. We'll do that later on, buddy. But I just want to get to the fact that, like, people are just making threats up that aren't real. And they're not even able to think about things clearly. And then therefore they don't feel empowered to be themselves. They think every interaction with somebody has to be a big production. And part of that is just because people let their temperaments inform their understanding instead of letting their understanding inform their temperaments and how they act in the world. Or in other words, people are trying to comport their understanding of the world to fit their personality instead of vice versa. What we understand and know about the world is what it is that should inform our personality, not vice versa. Because if we're really attempting to understand the world, we'd actually experience less fear. We'd just all be ourselves. We'd all speak candidly. We don't speak honestly than what it is that we do now. Because we're living objectively the best time ever, the best time ever to be alive. And we should feel more confident than what we've ever felt about society than ever before. So, if I were to pray for one thing, it'd be for people to try to do more understanding and less trying to make the world revolve around their personality. Yeah, Matt mentioned people encase their opinions with their personal identity, right? And Matt mentioned every attack has become personal, for sure, right? And so, if you actually let your understanding of the world inform your personality, then any attack won't be on you, but it'll be an attack on facts or a dispute about facts, which is a more sensible way of living fundamentally. Like it just makes a whole lot of sense. Good to have you on, Dan. Happy to see you, buddy. Glad you could join our stream. Matt did want to talk about Reigns Act passing the Senate. I mean, in my show, I don't totally want to make it about politics just because I think that there are too many people that are what I call politiholics that are drunk on the thought of democracy and they're high on humanity's lowest emotions like rage, pity, and sorrow. And politics is largely driving that right now. So, I'm not always eager to talk about politics, but I do think, Reigns Act is important. What it does is it restores constitutionally limited government by ensuring that instead of bureaucrats passing costly regulations without any democratic input from the General Assembly, that any regulation over $1 million has to be approved by the people. And if anything's democratic or if we ever care about democracy at all, as people seem to pay lip service to, then something like that is also necessary. We can't have bureaucrats just deciding to make up rules and regulations because they think that they're enlightened and they're smart and we're not. It's nonsense. Total nonsense. Hey, good to have you on, Barry. So the Reigns Act is the best way that we can restore democracy and protect constitutionally limited government, in which there should be bipartisan consensus. There should be a bipartisan consensus that we should have a government that's limited by what the Constitution says, and that only lawmakers pass laws. We can't have bureaucrats just making decisions on whatever they choose because they're presuming then that they're experts. Because honestly, in the world, nobody is an expert on how things should be. That does not exist. There's no expert on how things should be. There's people who make better judgments than others, but there's no class of people that's an expert in determining, okay, this is how the world should be. No, that should be subject to public debate on anything. And if we don't have public debate about things like regulations or rules, then we don't have democracy at all. Even if people say that produces a good outcome for their favored constituencies, a good outcome, again, is not automatically democratic, full stop, fundamentally. So that's the gist of the REINS Act passing the Senate. Hopefully the House passes it. Hopefully there are Democrats in the House, in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, that believe that bureaucrats should not be making laws, and that on behalf of their constituents, they have an obligation to pass those laws. Hopefully that's what Democrats believe. Hopefully there are those in the House that believe that, and will put REINS Act up for a vote. And particularly with 2026 being a campaign year. If Democrats wanted to prove their commitment to democracy, they can pass the REINS Act out of the House. It went out of the House a couple different times before, but it could do so again. Democrats could say, hey, we're actually a party of real democracy, and not lip service to democracy by passing the REINS Act. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Matt? Let me know in the comments if it does. For whatever reason, these comments never show up in the chat. So I have to go on Facebook here and then read the comments individually, and then they don't actually show up in the chat. Like, this is what I have for a comment. Never miss a comment. The actual comments that you guys are putting aren't showing up in this ridiculous chat. But part of what I wanted to do with the show is I wanted to talk about the things that I've written, but I haven't even written much lately because of that scam call. If you guys are out there like that, you could get a call again saying that if you hang up, you're going to be arrested and going to jail. And I was so paranoid, messed up, that I felt exhausted when it was time to do a show. And so I haven't written, and then I've been trying to focus on some things here at work. So that makes it a hair tougher. But thanks again, all new folks, for joining the stream. Now, I didn't want to talk about politics, but I saw a funny article on Substack. There's a group that's called the Liberal Patriots or something or other. And sometimes they write about Democrat politics and they actually admit all the problems that are involved in it. And they were writing this article about Democrats giving up on net zero energy policy. And what's funny, so if you don't know, net zero is this idea that Democrats are going to mandate through government that there's no carbon emissions at all. And they think that that's possible. It's such an absolutist goal. It fundamentally does not make one lick of sense. So it doesn't even make sense why they even had that position to start with. And the author of this article was like, yeah, Democrats are giving up on net zero energy policy. It got some kind of surprise. It's like, bro, that never made sense to start with. I do hope that the Democrats in general start giving up on things that make no sense, like net zero energy policy. I mean, basically, net zero means that we want no carbon emissions, so therefore nobody should travel, nobody should do anything. They should just sit around and pray to trees and do a little kumbaya, and magically we will avoid the environmental apocalypse. That's obviously insane thinking. And anybody should recognize that and call it out for what it is. But anyhow, generally I'm just reluctant to talk about politics because it's become, pretty much just all rage bait fundamentally. There are some substantive policies out there that are worth talking about, that are interesting, fun, useful, and it's worthwhile to explore. But it's just become rage bait, and I hope more Americans realize that how politics is conducted fundamentally in this country has to change for things to make more sense. It's not the case that pretending like people in a different party are out to get you as part of some cultural crusade against everything you stand for is healthy. There's nothing in the world that's healthy about pretending that people are out to get you. And to that degree, like it's not worth it then to talk about politics until people can just realize that it's not making sense. And part of the reason why it doesn't make sense fundamentally is because we don't actually have a real Senate. We have a a Senate that functions like a um, that is functioning like like the House. So we don't have anybody in the Senate that's thinking about things thoughtfully to the way that the founders anticipated. So if we did, they would do more to put an end to the nonsense that goes on in both the House and then our media, and they would just never allow for any of that. But we're not there. We have to repeal the 17th Amendment. In my estimation, perhaps you guys have something else you think, but we're just not going to have a more sensible way of doing politics until we repeal the 17th Amendment. And actually, I was at a place called High Dive yesterday in Harrisburg, and I was telling a guy in the bar the same thing, that we are so far away from what the founders actually wanted that we're just not going to be able to have common sense in our politics until we get back to that point. And it seemed like he was sort of a left leaning guy, and that's fine enough. I believe in partnering with anyone to do good and nobody to do evil. But it was interesting because he really did seem to understand and actually appreciate that point, that things are just so out of whack with what the founders wanted, that it's going to be a long time before we're back on track. So yeah, good to see you, Miss Dawn. Good to see you. I'd like to talk about more good articles that I read, but I'm not certain that great, insightful things are actually being written right now. There's not a whole lot of quality writing. I was trying to explain this to a gentleman that I was talking to when I went to the YMCA. I said, the main thing that I'm reading, it's called the Spectator, and it's like 18th century social commentary that used to be printed in newspapers for fun, for humor. And I mentioned how it was both insightful and well written. And I was trying to explain to him the difference between how something can be insightful and well written, and how most things now are not that are written are not insightful or particularly well written. Most of what's written now, it's just a smattering of facts, and it sort of seems like people are afraid of AI, but it seems like before, people have been so afraid to say anything of consequence that it was like their writing read like it was written by AI anyhow. so it wasn't good writing to start with, and what I was trying to explain to him is that the state of writing in this country is so bad that it's worth reading stuff written in 18th century newspapers because they had a greater appreciation for style and insight that most journalists don't quite have. They want to make sure that they have the right message, that they're saying something safe, that they're not gonna stir any feathers. There's such a great emphasis on being safe in conversation that people are losing their ability to share insight. They're losing their ability to be honest or candid, and it's really, really just so mixed up. So yeah, that's the plan. That's where all things are. We're trying to build back the stream, get that going consistently to write more. If you look at my Facebook page, sometimes what I try to do is write things that are funny and insightful and to some degree heartwarming, so that people can have some joy or something interesting and good and new to read instead of the same old canned post we get on social media. So make sure to check that out if you haven't. Good stuff there. And you can always go to zigmundreichenbach.com. You can go to my website and look at the archives of all the things that I've written over the last maybe 3 years. I've written 120 posts, each about 250 words each. So there's lots of interesting things. It's called the Ideas of the Marketplace. Lots of interesting things I'll be happy to discuss with y'all then. So what's good in your guys' world? You guys got, hey, Stephen Port. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're not smoking any unscented candles or cigars. But yeah, just out there talking about how there's not a whole lot of interesting stuff out there to read. So that's where we are. I think maybe what I'll do is maybe next week, depending on what does or doesn't happen, I'll see if I can get a guest in here. Maybe come up with a topic in interest. Maybe do some kind of debate or something, some kind of back and forth. Heck, maybe see if my old friend Grant Henry will come back. Grant, if you're listening, I hope you do well, brother. I hope things are good for you. I really, really, truly do. So yeah, I guess we'll make it a shorter stream tonight. Next week I will come back with either more writing or more guests or more things to discuss. I'm still trying to get my sea legs underneath me. We are also doing I'm doing a photography project in my spare time. We're trying to put together some what's called zines or little photo books there that people can look at. Like Kathleen and I have traveled to different places, and so we're trying to share the joy of travel and help people understand that there's beauty all around them in all kinds of interesting places through photography. So be on the lookout for that. Sue H, good to see you. Hope you're doing alrighty. So that's the plan. That's our show. We're not back up to full strength like what we used to be in the old days of talk politics. It's gonna take some practice, some motivation, some time to get back into it. And I'm also not talking about news to the same extent. Then it's easy to talk about news. For instance, we can spend time talking about the riots in LA and things of that nature, but it's like people are talking about things that are so obviously wrong and despicable then further conversation about things like that no longer serves any public good or purpose. What's the point of continuously talking about riots in LA when that speech is not going to make any change? It's just going to make people upset. It may make the riots go longer, and that's even if that serves a political end for whatever side of the aisle you're on, that doesn't lead to the well-being and happiness of more people. Like it seems kind of insane to continuously talk about inflammatory things that we are never actually going to change, that we have no desire to change. Then we're not going to make an effort to change. So I don't talk about net news as much for that reason. I don't think if I talk about it that it's going to do a whole lot. People may be slightly more informed, but you have to ask yourself, what's the point of being informed if you're not going to make any change? Then you just become a receptacle of somebody else's political agenda and become a pawn in somebody else's political game. And it just only seems to make sense that instead of trying to be a pawn in somebody else's political game, you think about the best ways to change the rules of the game so they make more sense. Or at least the rules of the game, the game itself is more fun. If politics is a game of sorts and the rules are no fun, hey Monica, happy to have you on. If politics is a game, but it's not any fun because of the rules, then what is the point of playing? If the rules make for a boring game that's not informative, um, just designed to stir up outrage, it's not going to lead to any policy solution. What's the point? And that's what I tried to say about culture war stuff before. So there is no such thing as a culture war. There will never be a culture war. There never was a culture war. The most of the stuff that people are saying is culture war is just designed to get you to support somebody else's political agenda and at your own expense and well-being. So what's the point of that? Now, that's not to say that taking political action isn't important, but if you're not committed to making a change long term or making being involved politically more fulfilling and more rewarding for more people, what's the point of that? Like things in the world are so wealthy, so good, so prosperous that just shuffling around outrage bait is clearly nonsense, or at least it should be. So who makes the rules in politics? Well, that's a good point. Yeah, who does make the rules in politics? Well, sometimes it's lawmakers. Preferably, it's lawmakers. Sometimes it's bureaucracies. Increasingly, it's becoming presidents where every election has to go by some presidential obsession instead of members of Congress making deals and trying to think about the best way to make more people happy or to live better lives. So, it's increasingly become the executive branch, but surely we would live in a better world fundamentally if the rules that govern the political game, spoken or not, were changed to limit executive branch power. And that all of society's attention did not center around the will of a president or executive. And that's not to say that some presidents aren't better than others. They certainly are. But until the paradigm around the executive branch changes, until Congress reasserts its authority as being the first branch, the most important branch, as it was supposed to be in the Constitution, then whatever changes made at the executive branch level isn't going to last. It's not going to help. It's not going to change anything. And I'm not saying that to be a pessimist, but we do need more thoughtful debate around politics, and that's what we should demand and expect from all representatives. Full stop. So that's why I try not to talk so much about politics in this stream, because I don't even know, for instance, like if I have the capability to convince people that the executive branch should have less power, and I think that should be a unifying political priority across the board, then that might be the biggest thing. If we want to have a constitutional republic, we can't have a strong executive. Like, that's not what a republic is. It's not what it ever will be. And unless we're willing to make that change, then we're not going to get very far. Now, on that same token, it's funny because there are Democrats right now that are running an outrage campaign saying we should have no kings, and then implying that the actions that Donald Trump is taking right now is like that of a king. And you have to wonder, hey, you guys, did you wake up yesterday? Were you not paying attention to the fact that Joe Biden tried to mandate vaccines for 230 million people? Did you guys think of that? Like, are you really protesting, quote unquote, no kings or too much executive branch power? Or are you guys staging a fake protest so that your people can get more power? And then when your people get power, then you say, well, okay, well, maybe, 230 million people getting a vaccine, maybe that's not bad. Maybe that's not like monarchy. Yeah, we'll let it slide. Or the Biden administration unilaterally forgiving student loans. Well, the people want it. So if it's something that a large group of people want, then it's not monarchical. It's like, what are you talking about? So yeah, so how do you change it? Well, I mean, make it a priority to limit the power of the executive branch. Hopefully, get people to read. Everybody should have read the Federalist Papers to understand what the founders wanted and what our country is supposed to be. So many people want to tell us what the world is supposed to be and how our country is supposed to be run, but they don't even know what it was supposed to be to start with. So it's like somebody telling you that you need to turn your life around and get better without understanding what your life actually was or the challenges that you faced or whatever your personal circumstances. We have people that don't read history, know nothing about political theory, and lie. The people that are talking about no kings right now are lying. And we're supposed to somehow trust them with power. I mean, it's absolutely hypocritical, dishonest, lying position. When did Democrats care about constitutionally limited government? Was it when Obama unilaterally ordered drone strikes on Syria? Did they care then? Was it during the Biden vaccine mandate? Was it during Biden student loan forgiveness? Was it when JFK used to spy on political opponents? when precisely did that happen? So people have to get back to the foundation of what our country's supposed to be. People need to read. And I know that something like reading is perhaps out of fashion, but presumably that's what these public schools are for. So people can read things of consequence. Maybe that's a radical idea. Anyhow, that's where we are. Good to have you on, Tom. Happy to see you, Miss Larissa. If you want to support my work, again, I'm doing a photo book. I'm going to be doing these streams. I'm going to be doing more writing. If that matters to you, and perhaps it doesn't, and I guess perhaps for good reason, but if that does matter to you, go to Zigmund ko-fi.com/Zigmund E. Reichenbach to donate to the stream. Donate to the stream, man. Then that would be pretty cool. If you want to change the fact that most Americans are ignorant about what our government is supposed to be, donate to my stream and then ask me that question, and then I can forever gripe about the fact that people don't understand political theory. And then maybe that'll change. So donate ko-fi.com/Zigmund Reichenbach. I think I said Zigmund E. Reichenbach last time. I meant Zigmund Reichenbach. Donate to me, and I will tell people you need to learn more about your government. Does that work for you? That's all we got for the stream. We're going to come back next Wednesday. We're going to have more writing. We're going to have more things to talk about. We're going to get better and smarter. And hopefully more handsome. Although that's probably a stretch at this juncture. So, next time, we'll see you.